Hey guys, this is Coach Michael Burt, the super coach. I believe everybody needs a coach in life, and you're listening to Success is a Choice podcast.
Providing insights to help you grow your business, improve yourself, and add value to those around you. You're listening to the Success is a Choice podcast, where you get a peek into the lives of industry leaders as they share their stories with you.
Welcome to Success is a Choice podcast. I'm your host, Jamy Bechler, and I've known today's guest, Brandon Patrick, for many years as I first met him when I was coaching at a small college in Tennessee, and his daughter came to our camps as a youngster. She is now a college basketball player and doing quite well. Brandon is a lifelong business owner and entrepreneur, primarily in the real estate industry. He trains real estate agents all over the world. He is also the owner of Intervision Media Group and is a broker for eXp Realty. In reality, what Brandon does is build teams and provide ways for people to realize their dreams. Brandon, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Coach. I appreciate you having me on. It's really exciting to be here today. I hope we're going to be able to bring a lot of good information to your listeners, and really excited about it.
Well, you have your hand in a lot of things. You're pretty much big time. You know, you train a lot of people. You're adding value to a lot of people. You've done a lot during your career. Talk about a little bit how you got started, your background, your journey to where you are now, where you're just rolling. You know, an entrepreneur that builds teams and builds up people.
Well, you know something, Jamie, that's very humbling. And I'll tell you something, as far as, you know, people goes, you know, a lot of times it's funny. I live here in Nashville, Tennessee. And, you know, of course, we're known for country music, Music City, USA. And, you know, people see folks up on stage a lot of times, and they're sitting there looking at them and they're like, wow, he just came out of nowhere. A lot of people don't realize, you know, what that person went through to actually get to where they're at. A lot of them, they played, you know, for free and, you know, clubs, things like that. And they didn't just all of a sudden appear on the scene. But, you know, one of the things that we're going to be talking about today is the value of teams. You know, one of the things that I find in life is that, you know, again, when you sit there and you see people like that, or, you know, you see somebody being successful, there's a lot of people that helped get them to where they're at. And, you know, one of the things that we believe in here in Nashville, we're building a great team right now. We started out in May with a new company called eXp Realty. And since May, we're now about 3 months into it. And we've built this team to over 70 agents from zero. And, you know, these aren't just regular agents. These are agents that sat there, Jamie, and, you know, they sat there and they said, you know what, I see the vision that you guys are going at. These are, you know, top 10 National Business Journal agents, very, very successful agents. But, you know, the thing is that they see is that we're not sitting there making this all about one person. And it's really the team. It's like yesterday, we had a meeting in Franklin, Tennessee. We do these every week. We do several a week. But, you know, it's amazing sitting there watching, you know, 20, 30 people come to these on a consistent basis. And again, you know, that's the type of things that we're building on. The reason why we're doing that is because we don't make it all about one person. You know, everybody has a job. It doesn't matter, you know, if you're the greeter. It doesn't matter if you're the person that introduces the first speaker. It doesn't matter what role. Everybody has a role on the team. And so teamwork is very, very important. I know that you come from a huge coaching background. And, you know, before you got into what you were doing, Jamie, I mean, we were so fortunate to be able to find you at Martin Methodist College down in southern Tennessee and so forth, because, you know, one of the things that I believed in was being able to get my daughter around good people that could sit there and help build her. And, you know, that was such an important thing there.
I appreciate that. It was fun getting to know her, getting to know your family, and watching her progress over the years. Because I think we might have first got introduced to her when she was either in 8th grade or 9th grade, and then to get to see her progress, and then go to one of the best schools in the state, if not the best school, to play basketball at, and now playing in college. It's great to see her progress.
You know, it was a great journey. You know, one of the things that I believed on that, and, you know, before we get started, was, you know, moving our daughter to Riverdale. And the reason why is because I knew as a father that if I got her around a great program, that it would just mean huge things to her. Of course, this past year they came off I guess you would say, a mythical national championship, and they're second in the past 5 years, which was pretty cool. But, at the same time, though, it allowed her to go play in college. And, we couldn't have done that if we didn't have the right people that were around her. Jamie, one of the things that I want to talk about today, of course, what does it take to build an effective team? A lot of people, they sit there, they want to build teams. I remember, back in whenever I first started out in real estate, started in 1995. And I actually got my license the first time in 1986, but I really wasn't mature enough to really make the business work at that time. I was about 19 years old. And but in any case, got back in. I'll never forget it. The day that I got into real estate, was working on a master's in psychology, and was employed at Vanderbilt, at the psychiatric hospital at Vanderbilt. And it was back during the days of tent care. And I'll never forget, my wife was pregnant with our first child. And I'll never forget coming home. They called a bunch of us into the room and said, "We appreciate your service, but there's not enough beds right now that we're able to keep everybody there." And there's about 30 of us in there. And they handed us our check, took our keys, and we were on our merry way. And so I remember going home. Oh, it was bad. I remember. I mean, it just was not the right time to get laid off. But that was part of being an employee, and that's what happens. And so I remember going home, and my wife said, "What are you doing home?" And I said, "I think I just got laid off, and I've got a 2 week severance," which wasn't that much. It was maybe $500 or $600, but we needed it. And I remember I said, "I really think I want to go into real estate." And of course, with a wife, they're all about safety and security. That wasn't really a good choice for, I don't think she thought at the time, but, ended up making it work. And, what we first did, of course, the first years that I was in real estate, worked for a home builder, which was really, really encouraging. It helped me to understand how to do sales. In about 1997, went over to a new company to start up a program which was called Home at the Mall. And we basically was in with business with a gentleman, and what we did is we put kiosks inside malls. And because what we wanted to do is we wanted to have our agents, people to walk up and be able to get real estate information and then be able to take them out and stuff. But, after about 2 years, one of the things I found, Jamie, was, I was really interested in building teams. And, it came around because there was a gentleman up in Toronto, Ontario, by the name of Craig Proctor. And Craig was just doing some amazing things. So me and my wife, we went up there. At the time, before this, real estate was amazing for me. Was strange enough, was making close to $200,000 a year in it, even in the 90s. And, which for a young guy like me in his early 30s was phenomenal. And, but it was, basically, it was just basically being able to teach folks how to build teams. So pretty much what happened, we went up there, we got a lot of good information, came home, built a team of 5 buyers agents, and ran that for about 10 years, started up a company called REMAX Elite in Franklin, Tennessee, built that from zero in sales to about $135 million a year in sales, and was doing really good. And what happened in 2007, I'll never forget it. I mean, all of a sudden around 2007, we were getting about 1,000 leads a month and distributing it among the agents. And then all of a sudden I started watching my numbers, because I'm very big on monitoring numbers, and suddenly saw real estate going from, 1,000 leads a month, 900 to 1,000 leads a month coming in off of our call capture systems, down to about 600. A few months later, it's down to 500. A few months later, it's down to 300. All my agents are leaving me. And the next thing I know, I'll never forget it, Jamie. I looked in my bank account one day and I was like, I don't have anything left. And that was about 2009. And, it was very painful. We had to short sell our home. We had a beautiful home in Franklin, had to get rid of, I'll never forget. We had a car, and I remember sitting there thinking, we've got $12,000 of equity in the car. If I can sell it, we can go get 2 cars and not have a car payment. And, that was really how crazy it was back then. It was very painful. And so, going back to where I say that people, where they've come from with success, a lot of times people don't see these things, what goes on in the background. And, I remember, we basically short sold our home. I took a job waiting, basically managing a restaurant for $10 an hour. I'll never forget it. It's very humbling to sit there and have your customers come in that you sold houses to. And, at one time you're making over 200 a year and now you're making $10 an hour. And, it's very humbling there. And they're like, well, what are you doing here? I'm like, well, I'm feeding my family. And so, things like that. One of the things that I want to say to your listeners, it's not pretty much what you drive, it's how you arrive. It's, you're going to go through some tough stuff. I mean, everybody goes through some tough stuff. I mean, it's nobody, gets off scot-free with no pain. And if you're ever going to do anything big, you've got to do risk. And so in any case, but one of those things, what that taught me, I'll never forget it. I mean, I would sit there and, dig change out, just to get a doggone McDouble at McDonald's when I was out showing property. I'll never forget it. And, I can remember running out of gas and having, a friend coming and, bringing gas to me. And, but that goes along with, teamwork, because a lot of us were going through a lot of the same stuff. And it was just very, very painful. So in essence, from there, I learned one thing that, real estate, one of the things that it didn't do was it didn't afford a good plan for retirement. and so, whenever we got into EXP, whenever that came around and I saw that, I was like, man, this is going to be so helpful to folks. And again, we're up at about 70 agents right now. We've got about, we've been in business for about 3 months here in the Nashville area, and we've got some great players on board. So really excited about that. Now, whenever people, whenever you sit there and you think of teamwork, a lot of people, I'm constantly helping folks to remind themselves, in our team, that it's not about me, it's not about them, it's about we. And because we can't, it's kind of like the story in the Bible. It's, just because the hand isn't the head, it doesn't mean that it's not important. Everybody has a role on a team. I know that back when you used to coach, Coach Bechler, everybody had a role. Maybe somebody wasn't the best at, as a 3-point shooter, but they knew how to encourage their teammates to get them to win. And, they knew how to sit there and they knew how to be on time. There's so many different things that are important about being on a team. But, just because you're not the star doesn't mean that you can't do great things. And sometimes, the best role is being the encourager on the bench. If you're not the star player. I just watched a girl from Riverdale this past year, which I thought was awesome. She sat there and got a scholarship. The girl didn't play, never started a game, never wasn't a star player at all. But because she was such a good teammate on the bench, she was given a scholarship to play JUCO. And I was amazed. I was so proud for her. But it was because she spent 4 years being a role player like that. Probably didn't do probably a quarter or two of basketball in 4 years. But because she had that kind of drive and, willingness as far as being a teammate, that she was able to get a scholarship. So, things like that can happen. Now, as far as leadership goes, one of the things that I think that is so important, you've got to sit there and we've got to look at we have internal clients and we have external clients. Who's our internal clients? Our internal clients, maybe if you're sitting there working at a company, it can be a processor. An internal client could be, maybe somebody that, let's say you've got a business, a person on the front desk at a restaurant, things like that. You've got internal customers, you've got external customers. You've got to be very much in tune with what's going on because they're the eyes and the ears of the business. Of course, we also have external customers. Those are the people that are purchasing our product. But again, as a leader, I totally believe that we have to be constantly watching and just keep in tune on what's going on inside the market. Very, very important. A lot of times people, they wonder, the second thing that I really believe in is really constantly defining your roles. And, a lot of times people, companies, they sit there and they say, you're a salesperson. They've also got, let's say, a home builder. We've got builders over here. We've got this assistant superintendents, but we've got to continuously be sitting there clarifying what our role is inside the company, because everyone is important on that, coach. It's very, very important to remember, because the salesperson doesn't know how to build the house. If you're in a new home construction neighborhood, likewise, the home builder, they don't really know how to sell because the personalities are so different. A lot of times whenever are you familiar with desk testing, Coach?
Yes. More people should use those kind of tests, I think, to when they're building teams, to get to know, what the different people are that they're working with. Not everyone is the same.
Oh, man, that is so true. What we find a lot of times is, in sales, you find a high dominant with a supporting influential. Basically, somebody that's a quick decision maker, somebody that is very good with people. Whereas with if you're a builder, a lot of times those are what we call high compliance, high C people that are very big on detail. They may not be the best salesperson, but they're the best person when it comes to, measuring things and, the detail work of the houses. A lot of times salespeople are not the best detail person. I can tell you that just from, reading contracts over the years. I'm not great at detail. That's not one of my talents. But, one of the things that we do is that we surround ourselves with people that have different talents than us. And if you're sitting there and you're building your company with the same type of personality for every position, that's not a winning combination. You've got to have people. It's kind of like, whenever the Chicago Bulls, I'll never forget it, whenever, they sat there and Phil Jackson formed that team. And, he had the best person in Michael Jordan, came in with a great role player like Scottie Pippen. But you know what he needed? He needed that green-haired guy that could sit there and bounce rebounds and pull rebounds off the boards. As far as, that's what we have to do. We've always got to remember that, everybody's got their own role. Dennis Rodman wasn't a great shooter, never was a great shooter, but there's no one to this day that's been better at rebounding. And he knew his role. Michael Jordan knew their role, and that's the reason why they won championships. Everybody had a purpose on that team. So again, remember, don't always surround yourself. If there was 5 Michael Jordans on the court, well, they'd probably win anyway.
That's one of the exceptions, yeah.
Yeah, that's one of the exceptions of team building. I mean, but, if there was 5 Dennis Rodmans, they definitely wouldn't win. But when you have a Dennis Rodman that sits there and knows his role and can sit there and pick the rebounds off the board and get them out there to the outlet and stuff and get it down the court, that's what got them to win. Everybody there had different roles and stuff. So we have to remember that. As far as, the culture, one of the things about building a team, coach, is you've got to have a great culture. It's one of the things, just the pride in the company. The pride in what we do. I remember when Saturn first came in, there was actually, I remember back in the 80s, these folks have been laid off in Michigan and, are in plants from around the country, and they came here and they took great pride, guys, in building the Saturn car down here in Spring Hill, Tennessee. And, it was to the point that, when they would have quality control and something was off, people would practically cry because, if they sit there, they didn't do something exactly right. They had such a pride in what they did. They sit there and they built a culture of actually having, every year there was, big festivals in Spring Hill where people would drive for thousands of miles in their Saturns because it was like a club. There was such a great culture of owning a Saturn back in the day because, GM wasn't doing real good in the 80s. And that's really what brought GM back, was that Saturn. As far as, another thing that you need to look at as far as building a great team, we all have to look at employee recognition. And, a lot of times people don't realize how important it is that people even hear that they're doing a good job. People, that takes so much more. If you sit there and you can sit there and let people know how good of a job they're doing, if they're doing a good job, Now, it's to me, you have to give the recognition where recognition's due. And, but, sitting there, letting people know that they do that, you'll get so much more out of them. They'll want to do so much more as a teammate if you sit there and recognize these folks. It can be, a gift certificate to a restaurant. It could be a plaque. It could be, getting somebody up in front of the group to talk. There's all types of different ways that people love recognition, Coach. That's so important. Let me ask you that. When you were a coach, you coached at several big schools. How did you guys handle that?
Well, one of the things I think is important is you recognize, like you say, but you celebrate the successes. You celebrate the things that you're asking them to do. What's important? So you mentioned rebounding with Dennis Rodman. If he has a coach that's never promoting his rebounding or never saying, hey, great job when you went for that loose ball, or talking to the media about that, then that guy is going to eventually, maybe not a Dennis Rodman because he marches to the beat of his own drummer, but a normal person, human being, they might stop diving for that loose ball or going for those rebounds because that's hard work, and so as a coach, if I'm asking somebody to screen for Steph Curry so Steph Curry can get all the glory in the shot, then after the game, I'm not going to promote Steph Curry all day long to the media. I'm going to talk about, hey, when Draymond Green set that screen with 12 seconds to go, that was crucial. Steph could not have gotten that shot. And so you celebrate those things. The guy that tried to take a charge, steps in, takes a charge, and if that's called a blocking foul, he's out of the game. But he does that with 3 minutes left in the game. That's the kind of stuff you want to promote. So whatever's important, then you promote that and you celebrate that, and then that tells your people that what coach is talking about, or what this manager is talking about, or what boss is talking about, he really believes in. And we're going to we might not get promoted. We might, with a new title, we might not get a raise, but coach is going to recognize us. And like you said, everyone wants a little pat on the back.
I totally agree. So what I hear you saying, Coach, is remembering what you did well in the past, constantly reminding our teammates what we did right, and then celebrating that and
Absolutely.
stuff. So, as far as, because a lot of times when you get into teamwork and stuff, things get mundane. But if you can sit there and go back, guys, and say, hey, you remember when we did this well and the results that we got? Do you remember when we sat there and we called 100 leads that we purchased? And because we called 100 leads, we had 10 sales come out of that. Do you remember that? Yes. We can do that again and stuff. But reminding of past successes is so important, guys. Just like what Coach Bechler said there. It's always sitting there remembering past actions that got you to where you got to the championship and stuff, and repeating those.
And Brandon, it's not, some people might think, I think about those times all the time, but it's not living in the past. It's not the glory days where you rest on your laurels. It's that you remember the past so that it motivates and inspires you to have future successes. You're not living like Bruce Springsteen sang in his song, the glory days. It's not about that.
That is so true and stuff. So just remembering what you've done in the past to help you get back to where you've done things in the, right. I mean, it's sometimes, maybe we're a little bit off on, and we need to correct something, but we have to look at what got us the championship, the championship, or, what got us over a certain hurdle as far as our sales in the past. And, maybe it's that we've gone from calling 100 leads a week. We've all of a sudden now gotten a little bit lazy and we're resting on our laurels and we're calling 10. So we have to remember what we've done right in the past. And if there's something that, we need to do, that allows us to go back and correct it. One of the things that I also find on teams, it's kind of like we were talking a little about just a second ago. As far as with a team, you have different personalities in there. And with different personalities, how many times, Coach, in coaching, girls' teams, did you have conflict management? I mean, because the girls were always fighting. Or, one person, they thought, why aren't you passing? You're constantly coming down the court and you're being a ball hog. And having to sit there and get these personalities back into playing together and stuff and getting them back to where they're utilizing their talents, to sit there and build the team the best.
Eliminate, minimize distractions.
Yeah, and that's so big on teams, guys, because, again, not everybody's got the same personality. We all have to be working towards a common goal. And of course, always developing our teammates, looking for different things that we can, whether it be hiring a great coach like Coach Bechler here to basically help with leadership roles, things like that. It's so important to be continuously developing your teammates. Maybe it's, getting, the right tapes. Maybe it might be, reading Coach Bechler's book. There's all types of different things that you can do to continuously develop your talents. Again, one of the things that I believe that's so big on teams is, again, we don't talk about the I. As we've always heard, there's no I in team. So we need to be consistently sharing leadership. People that want to step forward, you've got to develop that talent, guys. You have to develop that talent because, if people are wanting to lead, one of the things that we're doing in our meetings right now, and it's the reason why XP is growing like crazy, guys, is because it's not about one person. It's not the same speaker getting up there every week and giving the same speech. It's not about, the same person getting up and, being the greeter at the door. One of the things that we do is, I don't want to say I, but one of the things that we're doing is, I'll call the week, before and I'll say, hey, Jim, can you speak this week? Sally, can you be the greeter at the door? Can you greet people when they come in? Bill, can you introduce the speaker? Tom, will you take over the meeting at the very end and, get people with the right folks? And, one of the things that's so beautiful about that, Jamy, is that, you don't have to, there's more ability to lead from from sitting there allowing other people to do things, because you can never grow if you're the only one that can sit there and fill out a sales contract. If you're the only one that can sit there and, write up an agreement. I mean, if you're not allowing other people to develop their talents, you'll never grow your company. And so now what we do is we've sat there and we built out from Franklin, Tennessee. We now have meetings in East Nashville. We also have meetings west or east of the city as well. We also have meetings to the west of the city. But again, the way that we do that is that we get people empowered. We allow people to grow their confidence. We allow people to get in front of the group and speak. And again, we have 20 to 30 people a week at our groups. And they're all wanting to see what we're doing because we're doing some pretty cool stuff. But again, sharing leadership is so important. It's not always the same person that's doing the task. I mean, it's building other people up. If you're a leader, Coach, one of the things that I really believe in, and I'm a Civil War buff, but one of the things that I've always loved about, studying the Civil War is that the great generals never led from the top of the hill. They led in the act, and they were in battle. And to me, you don't lead from basically flying in. They call it helicopter parenting or helicopter leadership, where you come in and you squawk and then you leave the room, or you leave, you go back to what you were doing. Great leaders lead on the field. So if you're sitting there, if they have to see the leader actually doing work as well. I'm sure that Coach back, in coaching, that, your captains, they were a lot of times the ones that were doing a ton of work in the off season. They were the ones that were sitting there, shooting, 500 extra shots after practice, because they knew that they had to be the ones that whenever it was called for, that they would be the ones that would take the winning shot. They're always doing things that are they're always out there with their team. They're never sitting there leading from up above. I think that's extremely important. Again, listening, sitting there thinking about, you might have a goal. Let's say that you've got a goal to sell 50 houses this month, or, 50 cars, or whatever your goal might be. But you have to constantly be looking at your goals. Sit there, look at them. They might have to be refined. They might not be, it might not be, because, there's things that happen. Sometimes that, there's circumstances that happen, but you have to refine them. Sometimes you refine them up, sometimes you refine them down, but constantly be looking at your goals. And, that's to me, the biggest things that I see as far as teamwork and leadership roles, Coach. That's pretty much what we've laid on the table here today.
You've dealt with a lot of real estate agents, and when I think of real estate agents, I don't think teamwork. I think I think a bunch of individuals, all in it for themselves, competing against one another to make that sale. How have you been able? I mean, obviously you do the things you've just outlined, but have there been some added challenges or some added strategies you found with dealing with real estate agents, or even just people that are working on commissions in the office that are it's almost competing against one another for the sale?
That's what I love about sales. I absolutely love that because it's competitive. And, to me, commission-only sales is really an equalizer. There might be people that get, make, $100,000 a year on salary, but when you get into competitive commission-only sales, that's really the equalizer, Coach. I mean, I cannot tell you how many times, even I've put them through disc testing. I've sat there, good looking, person, sharp. They have all the credentials. They look great. They look right on paper. And, you sit there and you hire them and, they don't pan out. How many times has that happened for you as a coach, where you sat there and you thought that you had recruited the best person for your program and they come in and they ride the bench? But that's the whole thing. I mean, and then all of a sudden you get somebody that comes in, it's kind of like a Larry Bird, and, he doesn't look athletic. He doesn't look like he could do much. He doesn't look like he could even dunk. And this guy leads everything because he had a great work ethic. And that's the whole thing in sales. I mean, when you get into commission only sales, I mean, you can have somebody that you would never sit there and think could do anything. And because of their work ethic and because that they're there early, they sit there, they make the 10 extra calls that other people won't make. They end up making it. But the one that you sat there and you put all your money into, good looking person, they drive the right car, they have the right clothes, have the right haircut, very good talking, but, sometimes they're lazy. Sometimes that, they just don't want it like the other person. And so, as far as commission sales, I mean, to me, that's where it's at. And, people can do very well on that. That's one of the things that we talked about yesterday in our meetings was, real estate, the ability to sell real estate. If you hustle, you can do very well. It can be a very good, high-paying job, or it could be a very miserable, low-paying job if you're not working.
Brandon, where can people connect with you or learn more about you, especially if they're in sales or real estate and want to get connected with you?
Jamy, I would love to talk with people. I've actually coached agents for years. You can get me at brandon.patrick@exprealty.com. Again, brandon.patrick@exprealty.com, or brandon@brandonpatrick.com. You can also call me. My telephone number is 615-474-2808. Again, 615-474-2808.
Great, and we'll be sure to put those in the podcast show notes so people can go to those and check those out a little bit later. Would love to finish up with just a couple rapid fire questions for you off the top of your head.
Let's do it.
A podcast or a book that you recommend or currently are consuming?
I love anything by Mark Victor Hansen.
Okay.
That's the guy that wrote Chicken Soup for the Soul.
Who would you like to meet or spend time with that you don't already know?
Grant Cardone. I'd really like to meet that guy. I've got several friends that have gone down to go talk with him, and I've never done that myself. He lives in Florida. And I've thought about, when I go down to see my daughter, seeing if I could just possibly be able to shake hands with him. He also has a house in California.
Our mutual friend, Michael Burt, the super coach, he called me maybe a month ago, and he asked me some questions about some coaching programs. And he's like, well, I'm here with Grant Cardone, and he has some questions for you too. Yep. And Grant started asking me some questions, and I was like, oh my, I'm talking to Mr. 10X. I'm talking to this guy who's like worth $400 million. And I'm like,
it's crazy.
Man, I mean, you know, Coach Burt is a pretty big deal too, but I was like, man, I got both of these yahoos, both of these big timers on my phone. What in the world's going on?
You know, isn't that amazing? Michael Burt actually lives in the same town that I live in, which is Murfreesboro, right outside of Nashville. And, you know, it's amazing if you ever talk with him. He was actually the coach of my daughter's high school team, and back several years ago before he got into coaching. And he's really built up a really strong business, you know, not only just here in Nashville, but he's been able to do it, you know, around the country as well. But yeah, good guy. But yeah, Grant Cardone, definitely. I would love to meet Grant Cardone. Really would.
I would too. Grant Cardone is if you're a salesman listening to this and you don't know who Grant Cardone is, then you're not maximizing your potential for sales. You need to know about him.
Isn't that the truth? Get on YouTube. There's all types of videos there.
What is a productivity tool or an app or a piece of software that you would have a hard time living without?
The one that I use the most actually is my QuickBooks. Okay. I hate to say that. I mean, that might sound a little cheesy, but I use my Intuit QuickBooks app very much because I'm self-employed. We also have a app that I use called eXp World, and that's a piece of company software. But, you know, I hate to say this, but I am a Facebook freak, and I love it because it allows me to connect with so many people at once. It's like in social media, one of the things, I have a company called Intervision Media Group. It's in Franklin, Tennessee. And, you know, one of the things that we do there, we do social media for attorneys. And, you know, just constantly, you know, I'm on, like right before you and I talked, I was sitting there doing some post scheduling some out from one of our best clients. And, you know, just constantly reading, you know, things like that. I mean, it's, you know, but Facebook is so big. I really am a huge believer in social media.
What would you say is the one most important habit or quality that helped contribute to your success?
Get up early. And that's the biggest one. I'm really much a believer in the early bird gets the worm. You know, you're sitting there in bed at, you know, 6:30, 7 o'clock in the morning. It's too late. There's so much, if you're getting up at 5 o'clock, there's so much, you know, stuff that you can get done then that a lot of times you can't do during the daytime because you're fielding calls. So yeah, getting up early is a huge one.
You've done a lot of things in your life and you love what you're doing right now. But if you weren't training real estate agents, working in the areas that you are right now, what would you want to do if you could do anything?
If I could do anything, I would be down at West Palm Beach, Florida, hanging out with my daughter, watching her. You know, that's doesn't sound like a huge goal, but I just, you know, I love watching my kids do things. But yeah, that's pretty much what I would do. I would be a traveler. I'd love to travel. I'd love to be able to get out to other parts of the world and see things, and really just you know, more than anything, get down there and see more of my kids.
Well, that is a great answer. Great answer. And Brandon, you had a lot of good insights for us today. I appreciate it. Thank you for giving us the time.
Jamie, this has been so much fun, and I'd love to work with you again on some other stuff. But thank you so much for having me.
I hope that you enjoyed those insights from Brandon Patrick. He plays at a high level when it comes to real estate. He has owned a number of businesses while also holding down a variety of leadership roles. Thanks for being a loyal listener to our podcast. And if you are just joining us for the first time, then welcome. We would love for you to catch all of our future episodes by taking just a quick second to hit that little subscribe button. Thanks again. And until next time, remember that success is a choice. What choice will you make today? What choice will you make today? What choice